in such submission that it propelled me into a direction of ultimate healing. I picked up my kids from school. We got home. They all pile out. My youngest gets on his little John Deere tractor. He had gotten away from me a couple times, but this time I didn't see it coming. The kids were all playing out front, and I said, just, y'all keep an eye on each other, and I'm going to go in and start dinner. And I wasn't in there very long, and I come out, and he's gone, and everybody else is there. And he had quietly gotten on it and driven.
Went about his business.
Yeah, he did. He was like that. He's a little bugger, but I love him. He got onto Monte Vista, which is a very busy road.
Yes, it is.
I remember standing at the foot of my driveway as we all, I sent the kids out in every direction, find him. But then I knew where he was, and I knew where I was and where he was. There was no way for me to make up the difference. And it's like time stood still for that moment. And I just waited to hear the squeal of tires and know that he just got hit. I just knew that's where he was. There was no way I'd get there in time. And I just said, God. And then it hit me. I'll get in my car. I'll drive. I'll be faster than running. I didn't even back out of the driveway when a cop car had pulled up with my son in the back seat, bouncing around. A neighbor had seen him and had called the cops. He was almost hit by a school bus.
Oh. Well, that road is a small road, and I know
it is.
I drive it, and it's 55 miles an hour on a small road like that, and I can't see that, but it is. And the school buses are... Actually, I was driving that road, and school buses was pushing me
yes.
down the road.
I cried for 3 hours straight. And I had talked to my counselor at Mosaic earlier about getting help for the brokenness and the anger, and not really sure where to go. Where do you go? I mean, I was doing okay in these Celebrate Recovery and the counseling sessions, but when life would hit, I just couldn't function in it. And he told me about a program called Teen Challenge. And I remember kind of tilting my head to the side and kind of grinning, going, teen? T-E-N? T-E-N? No. I'm not going to hang out with a bunch of teenagers. They may look young, but really, no. And he just said, Jessica, go look it up on the internet. And I did. I looked it up, and it says it's a discipleship program, and I'm like, that sounds like school. I don't need school. I need a hospital setting, and we have group, and I come out and we talk, and then I go back to my room. I mean, that's in my mind what I thought I needed, just being in the medical field, and leave it to God to say, no, I know best. Believe it or not, I called that night after all that happened. I got a hold of them in Fort Myers, explained my situation of suffering depression and suicide, and I was on an antidepressant at that time, and they said, well, we don't take people that are on medication. You have to call the Women's Center up in Georgia. I said, okay, and I got that number, and I called, and Connie answered, and I asked what her story was so I could kind of have a feel of why are you here? And she shared with me, and then I said, well, this is my situation. I've been suffering from depression for years, and I'm just broken, and I want to heal. My son was almost killed today, and it's because my mind is so wrapped up in saving my marriage and just trying to cope and get through each day that I didn't see it coming. And I should have been more aware, and I probably was a lot more harder on myself. I mean, kids do things, and it's within a split second, and it doesn't mean you're negligent, but I felt I was, and I believed I was. Leave it to the enemy. Somebody called DCF on me, and I had them coming, and the threat, that I was negligent with my children. And
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I was going to say thank goodness this time for the nosy neighbor, but...
Right. And the amazing thing is normally, I had already made up my mind about Teen Challenge. My counselor and I and my husband talked about going, and he supported it. My husband fully backed my going. Yeah, he thought it was a good thing. He said, he wanted to see me get healing. He supported me heavily in it. And when this man from DCF, he rang my doorbell at 10 o'clock at night, and I was expecting it to be my husband to get the kids. Some of them wanted to go stay with him that night, and we had a good, relationship during the separation. So it was DCF, and I called my husband. I said, they're here, and I can tell you this, I had such peace, a peace that I couldn't explain to anybody, because coming from worry and fear and everything, all of a sudden I had this just overwhelming peace, and this man did not scare me, and I knew where I was headed. I had talked with the director of the program, and they said, come on. They were ready to take me that weekend. I'm like, no, I got to get some things in order. DCF came, they interviewed, they said they'd be back, and I don't, honestly, I don't even remember most of it. I just remember having peace, and my husband was freaking out, but I had peace, which was never how I was always the fearful one. He was always my rock, and that was a lot of my problem. He was my rock. February 15th, it was a Sunday night. I was baptized at Mosaic.
Amen.
I dedicated
Fantastic.
my life to the Lord. I became a born-again Christian. February 16th, we got up that morning. I kissed my kids goodbye, and we made the 6-hour trip to Georgia. That was a very hard decision for me. But the alternative was, and I was tired. What it really came down to, I was so tired of just counseling session for 1 hour, 1 day a week, or 2 days a week, or 3 days a week. It's like, I need real healing, and I could drag this out for the next 30 years of my life. Or I can go and just focus on me, something I had never done. And I made the choice to go. With the support of my husband at the time, like I said. My kids were young. I didn't realize the impact it would have on them, my leaving, especially my oldest daughter. But I went and I did it anyway. I know my husband it was hard for him. It was hard for him to leave me there knowing this is for real. This isn't, we're just talking about it. She's going to be gone. And now he was going to have to pick up all the slack for both of us and still run a business.
Gone for how long?
The program is 12 to 15 months.
Yep. That would be disheartening for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
And a lot of people didn't think I'd make it, honestly. The bets were, she'll go maybe a month or two and come back. She won't be able to do it. When I got there, it was very intimidating and scary. But I felt God's hand on me for 2 solid weeks. I literally could feel his hand upon me. And I had such peace. And I was just getting used to, I guess, my environment. We lived in a church. I'm a big cat lover. He made sure there were 2 cats on the premises. They were all women, so I couldn't get into any trouble. I remember when I felt the lift and him say, now it's time to get to work. It was the most amazing thing I ever did. It was the hardest thing I ever did. I met women from all different walks of life, just as broken, if not more than me. And one of the most beautiful things about Teen Challenge, usually when you meet people, you meet them at their best. However, we met at our worst moments.
Mm-hmm.
Our most broken, pathetic, heart-wrenching moments, and learned to love one another in that moment and to spur each other on. It was 24/7 Jesus. 24/7 Jesus. I was literally soaking in God every day. And I can tell you this, he constantly poured his love out on me. He constantly reassured me how much I meant to him, how much he loved me. Because my biggest thing my whole life was feeling unlovable.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was just striving to fill that gap that was in my heart that I didn't realize was a God-shaped gap.
Mm-hmm.
I just tried to fill it with a husband and children and work and friendships and the affair. Maybe that, nothing filled it. I spent 11 months there. It was intense healing. And I remember in the beginning, he would just pour so much into me. He actually did through the whole program. I can't say it was just the beginning. But it was my opening to receive it that started to happen, walking it out a little bit more each day with trust.
Surrendering.
And like an expectation. We visited so many churches and we gave our testimonies, and every church we went to, I mean, we were almost at church every day of the week. I'd go in there bold. God, what do you have for me? Because each message spoke just to me. And just the awe. I mean, he really showed us who he is and how much he loves us. And that was what was so amazing to me, that he cared that much. I was still praying for the restoration of my marriage. I wanted it more than anything. Every church I went to, they would do an altar call, because it was primarily Assemblies of God that we were associated with.
Right.
And they did altar calls, and I would go up there sobbing, broken, begging God, heal my marriage, heal me, heal him, heal my marriage. That's all I wanted. That's all I stood for. That's all I fought for. And he started to bring it around. And we agreed to reconcile while I was up there. And it was amazing. I was very excited about that. A little maybe too excited. I sometimes run ahead of God, and it hurts. It hurts when you hit the wall. You think you know where he's leading, and then wham. And it's a little painful. Exactly.
I was just getting a vision while you were sharing of kind of when you were talking about how God knew that you were going to need this intense healing, because you were stacking depression, pain, depression again, hurt, depression again. And you were just stacking that stuff within. I mean, you 1 or 2 hours, even a day, or an hour here and an hour there would have never got you there.
No.
You were going to need, what you said, Jesus 24/7. Right. There was the only way it was going to push it to the top. It comes out, and then you're clean. You know, you really are truly
as we
clean.
Say, he does the squeeze.
He does the squeeze till he gets it all.
Till he gets it all.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we started to reconcile, as I had mentioned earlier, and it was wonderful. And I thought I had it all figured out. I mean, even to where he was leading us to a program called the National Institute of Marriage. And while I was reading a book that my counselor felt the Holy Spirit led her to give me, our friends back here happened to know the president of that, I don't know what you would deem it, but the Marriage Institute. And he took a personal interest in our marriage and tried to reach out, and it was rebuffed many times. And then an actual man that went through it in Rome, Georgia, because they hold it there quarterly. It's almost parallel stories. Married young, lots of kids. His wife was going through depression and had an affair. He found out when he was up at the Institute, and how God just miraculously restored it. That was going to be my story. You know? I mean, I wanted it. I was not going to take no for an answer. I pushed hard. I really, really wanted it. When my husband came up to talk, and we were in counseling up there, he'd come up on the weekend once a month for Family Day, and we would have our sessions with my counselor, Miss Martha. And it started to reconcile, and, you know, we were talking about this National Institute of Marriage, and I'm saying, you know, I found, you know, she gave me this book, and hey, we should try this. And he says, oh, I've heard of that, and then started to share what God was doing down here. And I mean, it was obvious to me that God was leading us this direction. One of the downsides of, well, I guess my role in the marriage was unrealistic expectations that I would put on him. And I didn't realize until much later that I stacked my stuff on him, and you have to carry this, and you have to fix me. And what I had ultimately done was made him my idol, even though I didn't bow down and worship him. Actually, I was quite the opposite. But he became everything in an unhealthy way. And that's a lot of pressure for somebody to carry too. So I piled all that on him, and he couldn't cope with that. The business was getting ready to move around the same time frame as this seminar. It was a 5-day intensive, and I got angry, because I felt, at what point am I going to be the priority in this? It's always work, it's always this, it's always that.